Breaking tonight, new video of that disturbing incident involving President-elect Donald Trump's daughter, Ivanka, allegedly being berated by an angry passenger on board a plane. Even worse, her 3 young children were traveling with her. Welcome to the Kelly File. I'm Sandra Smith in for Megyn Kelly tonight. Ivanka Trump was traveling with her husband and 3 young kids on a airport this morning when another passenger noticed her and went off. The man reportedly screaming at her, jeering at her children, and much more, getting himself eventually kicked off the plane. His partner posting this photo on Twitter, showing Ivanka visibly upset. And just moments ago, a TMZ camera crew caught up to the couple to ask them about the confrontation.
Can I just ask if you regretted it all, man? Was it a bad idea to do it in front of everyone's kids?
The incident raising serious safety concerns about the new first family. And in moments, in a Kelly File exclusive, Sean Spicer, the newly named press secretary for the Trump administration, will be here to respond. But first, Peter Doocy is live in Palm Beach, Florida, with more on this bizarre incident involving the future first family. What are we learning now?
Sandra, even though Ivanka Trump was sitting with her 3 young children, and even though the holidays are here, this agitated air traveler laid into her because he was so upset he had to share the coach cabin of a commercial airliner with her. According to TMZ, some of the lines this man directed at Ms. Trump included, quote, "Your father is ruining the country," and, quote, "Why is she on our flight? She should be flying private." But when given a chance to share his frustrations with the world, that flyer froze up. TMZ also reports the passenger who couldn't keep it together was holding a small child of his own, but still didn't censor himself. And don't think this was just a spur-of-the-moment emotional outburst, because before boarding, the man's husband tweeted, quote, "Ivanka and Jared at JFK T5 flying commercial. My husband chasing them down to harass them. Hashtag banality of evil." That Twitter account, which also shared a post describing the disruptor's demeanor as calm, has since been taken down, and the traveling party that was removed from the plane was delayed getting from New York to San Francisco, but they were still allowed to fly today because JetBlue booted them from that jet and rebooked them on a later flight, explaining that flight attendants were following protocol that goes like this, quote, "If the crew determines that a customer is causing conflict on the aircraft, the customer will be asked to deplane, especially if the crew feels the situation runs the risk of escalation during the flight." By all accounts, nothing ever got physical on this flight, and by all accounts, Ivanka and her husband, Jared Kushner, took the high road. They didn't yell anything back. Sandra?
Peter Doocy, thank you. Surely we need to discuss this. Joining us now, David Wohl is a Trump supporter and attorney, and Nomiki Konst is host of The Filter on Sirius XM Progress. So, David, what do you make of this entire situation? I mean, everybody kind of looked at this incident and said, what happened? But it did appear there was some premeditation with that tweet that was sent out by the man's partner saying they had spotted Ivanka Trump and he was chasing after her.
Right. He says he's spotted her in Terminal 5, which creates a security risk in and of itself. And then there was premeditation in the harassment, which makes it worse. And let's not kid ourselves. If they had done this to Barack Obama's children, they would not have been put on another flight as JetBlue did. They would have been put on the no-fly list. This is the type of juvenile behavior, this irrational behavior that has exploded among the left since Mr. Trump's huge victory. It needs to stop. If you have a problem with Mr. Trump, tweet him, send him an email. Do not attack his family, because you'll end up paying the price. And I think this is going to go further than just this being booted off this one flight. Well, it has to. This is really bad news.
If you're like me, Nomiki, you were saying, well, where was the security? First of all, everybody was shocked she was on a commercial airliner and sitting coach with her family. But then it was, where was the security in all this? Right. Secret Service was present. When contacted, they referred inquiries to JetBlue about all of it. But they did say Ivanka Trump has full Secret Service protection as the daughter of the president-elect. But still, for this man to berate her, a mother in front of her 3 young children,
Listen, I commend Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner for living a civilian lifestyle, trying to live a normal life amidst the chaos of going into a Trump presidency. But she is not a simple civilian. She's not just the daughter of the president. You know, this isn't Sasha and Malia, who are underage in the presidency living in the White House. This is somebody who's trying to be a civilian, who claims that she's just the daughter of Donald Trump, but also shows up to high-level meetings with dignitaries around the world and is very involved in the decision making.
Well, she does not have any official role.
So that justifies her being attacked on an airplane with her husband and her children? And when this clown has his child with him, he attacks as well? I mean, nothing justifies it, and nothing can allow this to happen in the future.
But what backs up Miki, let me get this in here, because your same sentiment was echoed in a piece in Vogue today. They said this is just the latest in backlash against Ivanka, who has repeatedly declared herself just a daughter, while simultaneously sitting on her father's meetings and phone calls, meeting with foreign leaders. I go back to you again. I'm sorry. So that gives this guy the right to berate her in front of her family while she's trying to go on a vacation? Is that what they should expect? And are you okay with that?
I'm not okay with anybody being disrespectful of our presidency, no matter who that president is, and I say that as a Democrat. I think people need to be very careful and cautious with how they articulate their feelings. But let's be clear, this person was not violent. They screamed. They were like every other New Yorker who screams at people on the streets. I mean, President Bush had a shoe thrown at him. This is very normal. Let's not blow this out of proportion. Does that mean it's right?
What?
No.
You know something? I give Jared Kushner, I give Jared tremendous props for being restrained and holding himself back, because I'll tell you something right now, had that been my wife, I don't think I might have done that. You're on a cylinder going 7 miles into the air, and who knows what's going to happen if those clowns are allowed to stay on the plane.
I don't condone it.
Good thing they were removed.
Let's make it clear. I don't condone it. I don't condone it. But let's not blow it out of proportion.
But let me just tell you, an eyewitness who said he was sitting 15 inches from Ivanka spoke to NBC earlier, and he said he completely agreed with getting this man thrown off the plane. He said he wasn't shouting, but he was physically shaking when he approached her. And he said that she handled the situation calmly, with class. It was security that ultimately made the call to remove him. He even claimed that his politics were not
Trump
with Trump.
Derangement syndrome, Sandra. Classic Trump derangement syndrome. It's spreading, and it needs to be handled.
I think you're blowing it out of proportion. I mean, this is going to happen with any president. Now, let's be clear here. You're pitting one side against another, and you're making this guy the representative of the entire left.
If you have a problem with the president, email him or tweet him. He loves Twitter.
Absolutely.
Do
he
not
loves taking
attack
people
his
down
daughter.
on Twitter. He loves encouraging, extremism on Twitter. We all know that.
Thank you to both of you for sharing your thoughts. Now everybody at home can have their thoughts on that situation. All right. Also breaking tonight, President-elect Trump announcing his pick for White House press secretary. It was long awaited, and now RNC chief strategist and Trump transition team member Sean Spicer has been chosen, and he's talking first to the Kelly File about his new position in the Trump administration. Sean Spicer joins me now for a Kelly File exclusive. Congratulations,
Thank you very much.
So how did you find out about the gig, by the way?
Mr. Trump called and said, congratulations. And I told him I was honored. And it was an unbelievably humbling moment to think of some of the people that have held this position and what it does. It's an opportunity to speak on behalf of this country, on behalf of the next president of the United States, and deliver them the messages and news that where this country's going and what it's doing. So it is humbling, to say the least, to realize some of the folks that have had this job and the footsteps that I'm going to walk in.
Considering Donald Trump ran anything but a conventional campaign,
right.
Everyone's wondering what is your job as press secretary going to look like, considering all the criticism we have seen from Donald Trump of the media, various outlets, individual reporters tweeting at them. What does your job look like?
Well, I think there's a difference between calling people out and understanding the role that the press plays in a free society. The press has a right to go out and write stories and communicate things. But I think similarly, in what Donald Trump has proven, both as a candidate and now as a president-elect, is that when people are wrong, he's going to hold them accountable and he's going to correct the record. So it's going to be he's used Twitter more effectively in social media between Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Do you like that? Will he continue that?
It's not a question of like, because it is. It's unique. He has a direct pipeline to the American people, to talk to them in a way that no one's done before. I think it's fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating, and it makes every day, every hour just unbelievable, because you know that you're having that conversation with the American people, and they can have it back with him, and he's not having to put everything through the filter of the mainstream media.
Well, you don't have to look far to see your name in headlines all over the place right now. Washington Post headline today: Trump chooses Sean Spicer for press secretary, rounds out communications staff. When you dig into the article, Sean, it says filling what is likely to be a challenging position given Trump's sometimes hostile relationship with the media and his propensity to bypass staff to communicate directly with the public on Twitter. That is some of the criticism that we are.
I don't know that it's a criticism. Look, he's the president of the United States. We answer to him. He doesn't answer to us. And I think what we do, we serve him and the American people and try to get the word out in terms of the communication staff. But he has a direct pipeline to them. And if he wants to use Twitter or any other social platform to speak to the American people directly, that's what he should do. He's the president. It's not our job to tell him what to do. It's to serve him and to help amplify that message.
All right, so let's talk about how your role might look different than previous press secretaries. One of them works right here at Fox News, Dana Perino. But you had hinted with Megyn Kelly on this program last week, maybe daily press briefings aren't needed. Are you going to do away with those?
I think what we need to do, and it's the same thing that Donald Trump's looking at everything in government, is can we do things better? Can we be more effective? Can we put the American people first in some of these? So maybe you saw how effective they used Facebook Live. Are there things that we can do? It's not a question of getting rid of certain things, or maybe we add certain things, but I think that we want to be innovative, entrepreneurial, as we look at all of these positions and all of these government agencies.
So will there be daily press briefings?
I believe that we'll have daily briefings, but maybe we add an element to them. Maybe not everything's on camera. Maybe we bring more people into the process. There's an amazing group of folks. You know, he named today Kellyanne Conway, Jason Miller.
What will her role be? By the way, she's appointed counselor to the president. She's the highest ranking woman in Trump's White House.
And she was also the first female ever to win a presidential election. So Kellyanne is someone who's shattered the glass ceiling and continues to do it. But she has been someone that the president trusts to give her advice on strategy and messaging. And she will continue to play that senior role of counseling him, giving him ideas, talking about how to shape an agenda and a narrative.
All right, let me talk to you about a couple things in the news right now. Ivanka Trump and this JetBlue plane incident. What do you know about it? Well,
clearly there was somebody who was trying to act out of line, and I think JetBlue acted accordingly and took that individual away. They went on Twitter and made it very clear that their intention was to, quote, harass her and her family. That's inappropriate, no matter what your feelings are towards anyone in this country. To do that to a woman who was on there with her children, I don't care what your political background is or what your thoughts are. That's not the way we as Americans need to act.
Drain the swamp. Newt Gingrich had hinted that maybe that messaging was going away with the president.
I think the president made it very clear on Twitter today. It's going to keep going.
He did. So everybody's kind of wondering where the former speaker was coming with those words. But he has since retracted that, and he put out a message on his own social media that maybe that was wrong.
One of the things that I think people have to understand is that Donald Trump is the ultimate decider, and he will tell you what he believes and how something's going to get done. Other people don't tell him what he needs to think or do. And I think we've seen that time and time again. And look, when you look at the Lockheed story today about the F-35, the Boeing story with Air Force One, he isn't even president. We're 29 days out. He's gotten results on carrier. He's brought costs down on government programs. He is going to get things done in a way that people have never seen. The change that's going to come to Washington, I think, is going to send shockwaves through the system.
All right, it seems like every pick that Donald Trump has made, his critics have dug up something on them. Are they going to find anything?
I hope not.
Spicer? Anything out there that we should know about?
I hope not. I think I've done a pretty good job but I hope that every day that I serve in this job, I make Mr. Trump proud, Reince Priebus proud, Governor Pence proud, and more importantly, the American people. I think that what he has asked of every one of us is to make this country proud of us, proud of the accomplishments that he's going to have as president, and make the country great again.
Sean, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Still to come, new reports Eric Trump is responding to criticism and the controversies that plagued the Clinton Foundation by halting fundraising for his own charity. Trump transition team insider Anthony Scaramucci is here on that. Developing tonight, amid allegations of pay for play, Eric Trump will stop fundraising for his own foundation. The move is being applauded by former White House ethics lawyers, but questioned by supporters who want to see the charity work continue. In moments, Trump transition team insider Anthony Scaramucci will be here on that. But first, our chief Washington correspondent James Rosen has the latest on Eric Trump's decision. James?
Sandra, good evening. Apparently goes even farther, according to published reports. Eric Trump's announcement that the charitable foundation bearing his name is suspending operation. And with that announcement, the president-elect's son appears to have gone farther than he did the day before when he announced that he personally will stop soliciting charitable contributions. The Eric Trump Foundation has raised close to $8 million to help the cancer-stricken patients at St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital in Memphis. That step in turn followed the cancellation of an online auction to benefit St. Jude's, in which bidders had reached $72,000 to have coffee with Eric's sister, Ivanka Trump. Also this week, the family withdrew its name from a fundraising appeal promising million-dollar donors they could go on a hunting trip with Eric and Donald Trump Jr. and get a photo with their father. Kellyanne Conway, who will serve as a counselor to the president, bristled when a CNN anchor likened the Trump children's charities to the Clinton Foundation. A December 15th press conference in which the president-elect was to detail his efforts to separate the White House from his family's business empire and charities was abruptly postponed. Trump aides say nonetheless his divestiture plans will be in place and be made public before he is sworn in. Sandra.
All right, James Rosen, thank you. Joining me now, Anthony Scaramucci. He is an executive member of President-elect Trump's transition team. He loves to come in and give us the real story. So what is going on here? Eric Trump had a charity in his name. He's going to stop raising funds for that charity, or the charity is going to shut down altogether. What's happening?
Well, the charity is going to shut down altogether, so it's a sad day for St. Jude Medical Center. It's a sad day for charitable giving in that way. And so, unfortunately, what's happening in our society now is that we're very polarized politically, and we've got accusations of mudslinging going on both sides. And so Eric is doing the appropriate thing here, getting ahead of this thing proactively before his father becomes the president.
But let me stop you there,
shutting it
because
down.
some people are going to say that he's not actually getting ahead of it, that there may have actually been something more there.
I watched Jim's report, and so I really don't think there's anything more there. I think what happened is pre-presidency, come on a bear hunt with me and my brother. Pre-presidency, have lunch coffee with my sister, who wouldn't want to have coffee with Ivanka Trump.
Because that's really what raised the scrutiny of all of this.
Yeah, but all that stuff was happening, totally acceptable. Donald J. Trump as a business person, but now that he's going to be in the American presidency, the legal team's coming in there and really has to ring fence and shut down these efforts. And so for me, Sandra, and you and I know each other a long time, it is a sad day because Eric Trump has been at the bedside of children that have died from childhood cancer.
Oh, I mean,
Eric Trump has also participated in the miracles that we've seen where children have survived at St. Jude because of the money that's been put there to help those children. And so now it's going to stop. And it's going to stop for those children because of the politicization or the politicization, or however you want to say it, of the system. And so it's a sad day.
Okay, and we have heard from his friends, people close to him, said it pains him to do this. He's been raising money.
Phenomenal guy.
For this charity
I've
since he was
told my
21 years
children,
old.
may they have the arrogance of the Trump children, which is zero arrogance.
What did you make to the comparison to the Clinton Foundation?
It's unfair. We all know it's unfair, and I don't want to channel Kellyanne Conway, but you have to think about the Clinton Foundation. You had 94% of it raised. It didn't go anywhere. 6% of it went out. He did a 98.2% drive-through to the St. Jude Medical Center.
By the way, so we're talking about the Eric Trump Foundation being compared
exactly.
to. What about the Trump Foundation itself? Where does that stand?
You know, I don't know super amounts about the Trump Foundation, but my guess is, knowing Don McGahn as well as I do, and knowing the president-elect as well as I do, they want to give the appearance of no impropriety whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So when that press release comes out and Mr. Trump is standing at the podium answering these intensive questions from the mainstream media, you're going to get all these answers, Sandra. I think American people are going to be very happy with this family.
All right, so this
it's a
will
world-class group of people.
Breaking news to you, because the president-elect has been tweeting away, and he just tweeted this a few moments ago. The so-called A-list celebrities are all wanting tickets to the inauguration, he says. But look what they did for Hillary. Nothing. I want the people. Mm-hmm. That just happened.
That's a great. You know what's great about these tweets? You know when it's really him tweeting versus like some communications effort by our communications team. So my guess is he really tweeted that.
I talked to Sean Spicer, as you just saw earlier, and yes, he does most of the tweeting.
Look, I think it's one of the most effective tools ever. He's coming right over the top of the mainstream media, directly to the American people. And also the American people know when he's tweaking the media. Mm-hmm. And so when he says things, and I've said this before, Kellyanne has said it, he says things symbolically that really the supporters love, and the mainstream media takes
Which
literally and they go crazy.
Which celebrities want to go to his, I'm trying to figure out who that might be.
I don't know. Well, one of them was probably Andrea Bocelli, right? I think that it's a big backlash. I really think that the message for everybody is unification. He's going to be our president, and he's doing a phenomenal job of trying to bring the country together. And so let's go enjoy one of the greatest historical celebrations for the United States, a peaceful transfer of power of the most powerful position in the world, Sandra. How about that?
Anthony Scaramucci, always
Merry
good to have
Christmas,
you there.
Happy Hanukkah, all those great
to
things.
You as well. Happy
Kwanzaa,
holidays.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Merry, happy. Thanks. Coming up, President Obama with some words of advice for the president-elect regarding executive powers that has critics calling foul. Breaking tonight, stunning new video of the apparent terror attack in Germany this week, showing the very first moments of the horrifying scene. You can see a truck on the left of your screen barreling through the entrance of a Christmas market before some clearly terrified shoppers start running in the opposite direction just a few seconds later. This comes as we learn that investigators believe Anis Amri is the perpetrator of the attack, and he was no stranger to authorities abroad. And even in the United States, senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palkot has more from Berlin.
Sandra, we are at the Christmas market in Berlin that was the scene Monday night of that terrible truck attack, which left 12 dead and 50 injured. This as the investigation into that attack goes into high gear, and that means the search for 24-year-old Tunisian man Anis Amri. German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Thursday saying that officials think they're close to nabbing him. They found his fingerprints on the cab of the truck. The local media says the police are still searching for clues. Reports also say that that suspect was very much on the German terror radar over the past several months, arrested or detained a few times, monitored, offering to commit attack within Germany. And reportedly, he was on the U.S. radar too. He's said to have been on the no-fly terror list. The officials said to have monitored him talking to Islamist figures as well as checking out terror websites. Now, Sandra, it is dark here now. In fact, this market is closed. But earlier today, we took a look at the market and talked to some people. Here's what we saw. Here's what we heard. It was here Monday night that a place of joy was turned into a scene of terror. A truck weighing something like 25 tons came barreling into this Christmas market here in Berlin, smashing into people, killing and injuring, hitting stalls, decorations, ending up there about 250 feet down the way. Now, 3 days later, this market is open again. A sign of courage, a sign of defiance.
Having it open right now, it's not just having feelings, but also for me it's a strong signal, it's a sign.
A sign of what?
That we are back on the road.
To show the terrorists that we stay strong.
The U.S. Embassy tells Fox News that 2 Americans were hurt in the attack. One has been released from the hospital, another is still in. We are told that there are 12 in hospitals right now, and all of them are in serious condition. That's the latest from Berlin. Back to you, Sandra.
Thanks so much, Greg. Tonight's headlines are causing some critics to pounce on the president-elect's proposed ban on immigration from some Muslim-majority countries after he suggested yesterday that the situation in Berlin proves that he is, quote, 100% correct on this issue. Pete Hoekstra is a former House Intelligence Committee chairman and former Trump campaign national security advisor. Buck Sexton is a former CIA officer and host of the Buck Sexton Show on The Blaze. Buck, I'll start with you first. Clearly, this attack has exposed problems with Germany's immigration system. What have we learned in the wake of this horrific attack?
What we've seen is that there were a number of points at which this individual should have been detained and sent out of the country. The fact that you would have someone who is known to fraternize with jihadists, who has been caught on surveillance tapes, talking about perhaps procuring weapons, who was clearly a security risk, was known to be a security risk, but they couldn't deport him from the country because he lacked a passport from his country of origin just goes to show how inept, quite honestly, the German immigration authorities and German immigration law actually are here. There's also, of course, the security services failure. I know that they are overrun right now in Germany, in part because of the Merkel policy of open doors to much of the refugee population coming in from Syria and other places in the Muslim world. Because of that, they're completely inundated with surveillance needs for known extremists all across the country. This is a security burden that they can't really handle. But in this case, we're talking about somebody who made a lot of mistakes, who popped up on the radar. They should have detained him and kicked him out of the country or found a way to keep him in prison. They just dropped the ball on both immigration and security.
Congressman, I think that's what troubles so many. When you look at this attack and you look at all the details coming out of it about him, about where he came from, about what he's done, what we knew about this man, and how he slipped through the cracks and how he was able to carry out such a horrible attack.
And what it really does is it highlights how ineffective the West, the Europeans, and the United States have been in fighting this threat from radical Islam over the last number of years. We've got 5 failed states in the Middle East. What does that mean? It means that terrorists have enough of an influence in there to make sure that the central government doesn't control much of the nation. They include Libya, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. We have 10 million refugees or displaced people in that part of the world. 1 million of them have gone into Europe, many of them into Germany. They haven't had the vetting. This is why Donald Trump's proposals make so much sense. What is he proposing? We're going to have secure borders. We're going to make sure that we control who comes into the country. And for people who come from terrorist regions where the governments are failed, where we don't have proper documentation, yes, we are going to have extreme vetting. So hopefully we don't have what they saw in Germany, an individual who they can't send back to their home country because he got into Germany and he didn't even have a passport. It shows you how hollow our national security policy has been.
And meanwhile, Buck, as we approach Christmas and New Year's and Inauguration Day, we wonder if what we saw there, if it's coming here or more of it based on recent attacks that we have seen. It makes you wonder what the terror threat is today in the United States.
Well, Senator, they're responding specifically here at the Berlin attack and others that it should be pointed out that have been thwarted by German authorities. There's just a plot in Australia that's been thwarted. But this is what the Islamic State wants. They want individuals who have radicalized on their own to decide to use everyday items, knives, vehicles, trucks, whatever they can to just cause mass casualty attacks in the West against perceived enemies of Islam in America and around the world. And this is going to continue on, unfortunately. It's very difficult to stop these kinds of attacks, which is why ISIS is pushing for them. And we are in a heightened threat season right now because they've also been saying that they want to hit us during the holidays. Yep. There's more congregations of people outside. So an enormous burden on security services in Germany, in Europe, and here in this country. And we just have to hope that we get it right every time, or else there are going to be more like this.
All right, Buck, Congressman, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Good of you to be here. All right, well, coming up, breaking new developments on what's being called a turning point on the humanitarian crisis in Syria. Plus, is President Obama having a change of heart on some of his most controversial decisions in the White House? Wait till you hear his unusual advice to Donald Trump. Then we'll discuss it with Mark Thiessen and Jessica Ehrlich. As you might imagine, many critics are crying foul as Mr. Obama has made it no secret of his love for his pen and phone. Listen to this.
I've told my administration to keep looking every single day for actions we can take without Congress. I've got a pen and I've got a phone, and I can use that pen to sign executive orders and take executive actions and administrative actions that move the ball forward. I've got a pen to take executive actions where Congress won't. Where Congress isn't acting, I'll act on my own. I've got a pen and I've got a phone, and that's all I need.
Mark Thiessen is a former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Jessica Ehrlich is a Democratic strategist. Mark, I'll start with you first. You've got a big smile on your face. It was a beautiful montage put together by the production staff of this show. I mean, he said it, and then look what he did.
It's quite remarkable the chutzpah it takes to say what he said in that interview. And the thing about his pen and his phone is that he's still using it. I mean, the day before he gave that advice to Donald Trump in that interview, he used his pen and his phone, took executive action to permanently ban offshore drilling in hundreds of millions of acres of the Arctic Ocean and the Atlantic coast. He took a 1950s era law written 75 years ago to expressly overturn the intent of Congress and the intent of the American people in this election. He's telling Donald Trump not to use his pen and his phone. Well, guess what's going to happen? Donald Trump is going to use his pen and his phone to undo all the things that Barack Obama used his pen and his phone to impose against the will of the American people.
Jessica, after what we just saw and heard, it is hard to imagine that President Obama has a leg to stand on offering this type of advice to the president-elect.
Well, I actually disagree. I think he has every leg to stand on, because what he's saying is basically like, do as I say, not as I did, which is actually very good advice in this situation, particularly given the fact that Donald Trump is starting with a majority in the House and the Senate, which is also how President Obama started. And then things fell apart and he lost that. And not only did he lose it, but Congress worked actively against every single measure that he had and every single measure that he put forward. And Donald Trump right now is starting with not only what President Obama felt that he had in both 2008 and 2012, which is a mandate from the people. And I think President-elect Trump feels the same way, that he has a mandate from the people, that he's going forward and going to execute that. He has the majority in the Senate and the House, and now is the time to work on that. And I think, what the president is saying is, don't lose that, without specifically saying, make sure you hold on to your majority and get the legislation done and try to do as much as you can, because otherwise that is what we'll end up seeing from Donald Trump, is having to do the same actions over and over if things fall apart for him.
Mark, you make an interesting point that it makes it a lot easier to undo a lot of the things that he did do with his pen and phone when you do go around Congress.
Absolutely. I mean, and look, right now as we speak, Obama administration's officials are burning the midnight oil tonight and every night going forward between now and January 20th to try and impose as many regulations and executive actions as they can in order to hide the hands of Donald Trump. So of course he's going to use this pen and his phone to do his best to untangle that mess that they've tried to wrap him in. But it's not just executive action versus congressional action. One of Obama's signature legislative achievement is Obamacare. That's going to get repealed as well. And the reason is, it's not that he did go through Congress to pass that, but he had the House and the Senate and he had veto-proof majorities, and so he went through and he imposed that over the objections of Republicans. If you want to be successful, if you want your legacy to last, you have to get bipartisan buy-in. You have to reach out to the other party and bring them in so that they don't come in and undo your work when they come in and get the power to do it.
And Jessica, it does make you wonder, when we saw the sitting president, offer that interview and offer that advice to the president-elect, it makes you wonder, the next few years, how much is the president-elect going to hear from President Obama? Will he be pretty vocal about his actions?
Yeah, I can't really speculate on that, but I will say that, President-elect Trump has said repeatedly that President Obama has really been very open and helpful to him and been wonderful during the transition. I think that will continue. I have absolutely no idea what President Obama will do going forward, or what his role will be on a national or an international level, on a local level. I really can't speculate to that. But I think Mark makes an amazing point in that, which I agree with completely. Whatever it is, whether it be Obamacare, I think that is actually how, everything sort of fell apart for Obama, whether he'll say it or not. He ended up losing control of the House and the Senate. And that's what leads to having that, where you have to do executive orders to get what you feel the people elected you to do done. Donald Trump is not starting in that position. He's starting with a position where he's got what he feels is his mandate from the people who voted for him. Okay. He has the House and the Senate. Right. He now has the opportunity to have an incredible beginning of the next several years.
All right, Jessica, Mark, thank you.
Thanks.
Developing tonight, a vile and racist attack caught on camera in a Kentucky shopping mall. Watch.
Go back to wherever the you come from, lady. Y'all think you... Hey, tell them to go back where they belong. If they can't act like, they come here to live, then act like everybody else. Get in the back of the line like everybody else does. And be somebody. And that's the way I look at it. You're a nobodies. Just because you come from another country, it don't make you nobody. You're nobody. As far as I'm concerned, probably on welfare, the taxpayers probably paid for all that stuff. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel.
I say sorry.
That's okay. Speak English. You're in America. If you don't know it, learn it.
Now, some are calling for that angry woman to face charges, but a local attorney says no one's come forward to make a complaint. Here now, Mark Eiglarsh is a criminal defense attorney, and Eric Guster is an attorney and municipal judge who sees these type of criminal cases all the time. Well, Eric, you may not see this one because nobody's come forward.
Yeah. In the cases like this, you have to have a complainant. You have to have someone to sign a warrant to say, I want to bring charges against this person because that any type of harassment charge, such as this case, would be a personal charge where the victim has to come and complain. It's a lot different than a murder charge or something else where just the state can bring a charge. So we're not going to see this one unless the victim comes forward.
I mean, Mark, what did you make when you saw this? I mean, it's happening in a JCPenney store. Obviously, you saw the video. It was a white woman, 2 Hispanic women, and one cut in line. I mean, you know, this kind of stuff happens. It's the holidays. People are tired. They're hungry. I mean, people get upset. But, I mean, this was a racist, angry tirade.
Yeah. Sandra, I found her speech as gross as what I've allowed to grow on my face, but as outrageous and offensive as we all find it to be. Let's make one thing clear. I disagree with what was just said. It's not a criminal case. It is constitutionally protected speech. As outrageous and offensive as it is, the First Amendment affords us wide latitude to spew that kind of ugliness and hatred, believe it or not.
Okay, what rights, though, Eric, does the mall have in all of this? Because they have responded. JCPenney has responded. They said that they would love to find the victims of the tirade, by the way, reimburse them for their purchase and apologize for their experience. But as far as the mall is concerned, once they identify the person, they will be banned from the mall. Do they have the right to do that?
The mall has the right to do that, but first, Mark is incorrect. Harassment is a criminal charge. That's abusive language, which this is 2 or 3 minutes of abusive language. Secondly, as reference to the mall is a public place, but it's privately owned. The mall has a right to ban anyone for any type of abuse, any type of offensive language, and it's actually in their code of conduct that is posted throughout their mall.
Mark?
So they will tell this lady that she cannot enter the mall ever again.
Mark?
He's right about the mall part. It's a private place. They can keep her out, issue a trespass warning. He's right on that. He's dead wrong on whether this is a criminal charge. Merely because people are offended, the Supreme Court has made it very clear. Skokie versus Illinois, the list of cases go on and on. We learned them in law school. You can be outrageous and offensive. I wouldn't mind if she goes to jail.
But you cannot use abusive language.
I would defend
you can't
her.
use abusive
language. So Eric, listen, if somebody who was present during that confrontation, if they're listening to this, what do you do if you see something like this?
This is the type of situation where you, number one, it's great that someone videoed it. Secondly, you have to let the DA know that you are a potential witness, because this person may need extra witnesses to talk about the situation, to give the scope of it, just in case it goes to trial. Because this is harassment. You cannot verbally harass anyone without expectations of arrest.
5 seconds left.
It's not a criminal offense. It's outrageous. It's morally wrong, but legally, unfortunately, it's permissible.
All right. We've got to leave it right there. Thanks to both of you. We'll be right back. Make sure you settle for more this holiday season and buy Meghan's new New York Times bestselling book. It's sure to inspire you to make 2017 the best year yet, and it will be. Jen says she took every experience and learned from them. She is a role model. Michael Nixon says life-changing book for girls and women of all ages. And Marty Lynn Black says, I was inspired. Her story has changed me and encouraged me to be more supportive of the women in my life and more honest with myself about what I want my life to look like. So buy your copy of Settle for More right now. It makes the perfect gift for anyone on your Christmas list. Last-minute shoppers out there, it's available now on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Sandra Smith, and this is The Kelly File.